As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize there's nothing left. Cause I've been blasting and laughing so long that even my mama thinks that my mind is gone. But I ain't never crossed a man that didn't deserve it. Me be treated like a punk, you know that's unheard of. You better watch how you're talking and where you're walking, or you and your homies might be lying in chalk. I really hate the trip, but I gotta low. As they croak, I see myself in the pistol smoke. Fool, I'm the kind of
welcome to the Week 5 update on www.TheScore.lk of the action from the Singer Schools Rugby League. The A Division, of course, had 5 matches this weekend, and we'll review those matches for you right now. It was an outstanding start to the weekend because we had 2 games on Friday, which were the Blue Ribbon games for the weekend, and after that, of course, we had the Club 7s on Saturday and Sunday, so which took the focus a little bit away from the Schools Rugby League, but we had the 2 big games on the Friday, so nobody missed a bit of the action really. And we went into week 4 with 4 unbeaten teams. We came out of week 4 with just 2 teams remaining unbeaten, and we do really have only 2 teams remaining unbeaten in this entire competition so far. So we went into week 5 with those 2 unbeaten teams, hoping to retain those tags, and let's see whether they got out of there with their titles intact. Dharmaraja College played St. Peters. St. Peters, of course, suffering that loss against Trinity the week before and travelling up and playing another Kandy school which they wanted to beat really badly. But without Anuradha Herath, who suffered that terrible ankle injury against the Trinitians, they came back and played pretty well, but just wasn't enough to dent Dharmaraja. 24 points to 12 it was in the latter part of that game. They managed to score a consolation try towards the end of that game and come up to 24 points to 17, and that's pretty much how the game ended. But St. Peter's College trying hard, but just lacking a little bit of depth and quality through from 1 through to 15. They rely a lot on Anuradha Herath. They probably played a little bit better with everybody else contributing when they knew he wasn't in the side, but still they don't have enough structure, they don't have enough skills to make a dent at the top of this Singer Schools Rugby League, and I don't think they're a championship aspirational side at all, and that has been the case from maybe about week 3, where they looked like they had the real positions of vulnerability. So Dharmaraja keep winning games, and unfortunately for them though, they keep conceding points as well. This is a problem for Trinity as well. Even though these 2 guys at the top of the table, they seem to be conceding far more tries and leaking their defense much more than they need to be doing, especially if they're looking at winning championships. So 24 points to 17 was how that one finished up in Kandy. Always a difficult trip to make for St. Peters, or really any team from Colombo up to Kandy, especially in rainy conditions. Then we had the Trinitians coming down in still more rainy conditions to the CRNFC to play Wesley. Now this was the game that we were at, that we showed you live. We showed both of the games live to you on the score as well. But I was at the Trinity College game, and it was a fantastic spectacle of running rugby from Wesley College. It was an outstanding burst of about 10 minutes just around the stroke of half time, from about the 30th to the 40th minute, that the Wesleyites really ran away with that game and extended their lead from 19 points to 9. And they went into half-time with a 19-9 lead. A 10-point cushion was more than adequate for them to hold on in the second half, or so we all thought. But unfortunately for Wesley, what happened is they thought that lead was good enough, and they didn't attack as much as they did in the second half. And they tried for the first 5 minutes when they tried to collect a kickoff and score almost from that ensuing kickoff, but unfortunately Trinity managed to come back and sort their defense out a little bit more than they did in the first half, and that was where the things came a cropper for Wesley College. They didn't seem to have the other facet to their attack, which is what Rahul De Silva really needed to sort out, because he was adapting his game to the conditions and kicking a little bit too much, which he probably shouldn't have done. He had a few overlaps that the entire Wesley line squandered, and with guys like Madhushanka and Aryavansa in their backline, who really can run circles around any opposition, they should be looking to get the ball to them a little wider, and which is what they weren't doing for most of the second half. When they did, they looked dangerous. But Trinity came back in that second half, and Tarinder Atwata missed 2 sitter penalties. It was, of course, a difficult day for kicking for all the kickers, because the rainy conditions made it very difficult. But the fact is that he should have got those kicks over and brought his team to within about a couple of points of Wesley and put the pressure on. But they found themselves going into the last 5 minutes of the game trailing 19 points to 15, and it was just an unbelievable try. It was a stroke of luck, really, more than anything else, that they managed to counter-attack, turn over the ball, counter-attack, and Ratpatha picked up a nice inside ball from Dureka Aluviharu, who was herring down the right, and he ran about 50 meters to score. Now he's making a habit of this, Tarinder, but he's turned turning from hero to villain and villain to hero far too often than he should. And that's an aspect of consistency that he really needs to bring into his game, because at the moment he is playing really well in patches and playing really badly in patches. Now, what you want from your standoff is to be able to play well right throughout the game and play brilliantly in patches. Now, that's not what's happening with Tarinda, and that's what Trinity will be a little bit concerned about as well. We had, of course, the green jerseys coming through and looking for their first win of the season. It was as many as 5 weeks before they managed to notch that up, but they did eventually against a hapless St. Joseph's team that they ran circles around, really. St. Joseph's went into an early lead, and that just shows that Josephs really have to concentrate on their fitness. Fitness has not been their key strength. They got some big forwards up there, but when it comes to the second half, they find themselves fading away, and in the second half of the season, that's going to be even more apparent. So I would look for St. Joseph's not to be as potent in this half of the season as they were in the earlier half. So Isipatana winning their first match of the season. Shamlin Namas breathing a sigh of relief. Udita Taranatha coming in and playing as well as we know he can, the captain and winger for Isipatana, and Hiranta Pereira also. Those two seem to have settled their differences, and Hiranta playing much better and controlling the game as well as we know he also could. The Sri Lanka under-20 player should have been playing much better than he was in the last couple of weeks. So good to see Isipatana on the board finally. Then we had the upset of the weekend. We had terrible conditions, like we said, up in Bogambara in Kandy, and the matches played there obviously are going to suffer because the skill levels that are on show are not going to be as good. And that always favors the underdog, which is exactly what St. Anthony's was. But Coach Theo Seraphim has been working pretty hard with his boys, and they know now what to expect. And of course, this Royal College team that he has coached for a few years before, he would have known these under-18 boys when he was there at Royal College, and coming through to first 15, he would have known exactly what they were going to throw at them. So St. Anthony's were a little bit prepared for this onslaught from Royal, and Royal trying to run because they don't really have a very strong pack. They don't really have a very strong three-quarter line, so they have to play a very balanced game this time around. And Rimzi Jamaldeen trying his best to set his threes in motion, but unfortunately the conditions underfoot not aiding that game plan, and St. Anthony's managing to win that one very narrowly by 24 points to 22. So that was a big loss for Royal College. Also, it was a huge win for St. Anthony's, who have been struggling to win matches in the first half of the season, but look like they're coming into their own now and will be a force to be reckoned with later on as this season progresses. So look to them also to create a few upsets, beating a few teams at the top of the table. Then we had our final match of the weekend. That was Science College versus Kingswood. Both teams really prone to running rugby, guys who like to run the ball from the outset, guys who have people who like to run one-on-one as well. And they have a lot of good runners in this side, both Science College and Kingswood. But unfortunately for them, the skills letting them down, which means that they're conceding tries on one end, but at the same time not even scoring enough tries at the other end. That match ended in a 15-all draw. So Science College, despite their promising start to the season where they beat Royal, and everybody thought this was going to be one of those upset seasons where Science College are going to finish top of the table, that myth has pretty much been laid to rest, because I think Science, with their set of forwards that are not as heavy, they've got a great player in Costa, but of course Chatura Gomez again missing a few conversions which could have made a difference to this game, the difference between victory and defeat. Also guys like Richard Dharmapala in the side, but he's been marked and he's playing at outside centre, so maybe they need to look at bringing him in, maybe even to the fly half position if he can manage that, and to see whether he can get his hands on the ball a little bit more often. So unfortunately for Science, they are drawing that game as well. So Kingswood still looking for a win in this championship, and that's something that seems to be eluding them for a long time, which is a shame, because they've got some good ball players in that side that just don't seem to be able to string things together and execute effectively. So still at the end of week 5, we have two unbeaten teams, that's Dharmaraja and Trinity, and the funny thing is these two teams have already played each other and got the best possible result that each other could get, 34 points all in the first game of the season between these two teams. And nobody really expected Dharmaraja to be at the top this season. They were unbeaten last year in the B division, but everybody expected the rise to the A division to be a little step too far for them. But unfortunately for the other teams that were expecting them to be an easy beat, they have proved unbeatable, and that's where they are at the moment. So when they come down to Colombo and play the likes of Royal College, that's when the real test is going to happen for Dharmaraja. So let's wait and see how those matches turn out. We have loads of games coming up for you in the next weekend as well. We have Wesley playing Dharmaraja, and that's going to be an interesting encounter. I would probably see Dharmaraja maybe not maintaining its unbeaten tag towards the end of week 6. It's a very competitive competition, and it would be very surprising. I was talking to Neil Footy the other day at the Sevens as well, and he's the coach of the Trinity side, and he said, you know, mate, it's very unfortunate if people expect a side to remain unbeaten right throughout the course of the season, and that's almost a disrespect to the other teams that you're playing, because those teams are very good. So Wesley versus Amaraj are going to be a cracking game, that is for absolute sure, because both teams like to run the ball and both teams have little cracks in their defense. So expect an entertaining game there. We have Kingswood playing Isipatana with a 1 defeat. Kingswood searching for theirs as well. That should be a very tight game as well. Might not be a quality game, but it will certainly be an entertaining game. We have Royal versus St. Joseph's. Royal will be looking for a win there. Of course, St. Joseph's will be trying to beat Royal College because they haven't had a win in 2 weeks so far, the Josephians, who started their season promisingly. Then we have St. Peter's versus Science. Should be an interesting game there as well. Two very unstructured teams, and two teams that rely heavily on their midfield and their number 8. So let's see, with Anuradha Herath comes back into the starting lineup and creates havoc like he usually does. And then we have Trinity versus St. Anthony. Should be a pretty easy win for Trinity, and I say should be only because Trinity are a very inconsistent side and St. Anthony's have been improving. So those are your matches to look forward to in week 6. We'll be bringing you all the live action from those games as well, and reviewing those games for you next week. Until such time, thanks for joining us on the score update and the roundup, and we'll be back next week as well with a lot more analysis of the action. Thanks again. www.TheScore.lk for all your live action.
Look at the situation they got me facing. I can't live a normal life. I was raised by the street, so I gotta be down with the hood team. Too much television watching got me chasing dreams. I'm an educated fool with money on my mind. Got my tin in my hand and a gleam in my eye.